Today, we're going to break down a truly horrific event, one that absolutely shook a city to its core. We're talking about the Gul Plaza fire. And this is a story that's not just about flames. It's about a complete, catastrophic series of failures that led to an unimaginable tragedy.
Now, before we get started, it's really important to say that what we're about to go through is based on the incredibly detailed research done by engineer Abdul Rahman Mahmood. He's a principal IT and security consultant and a well-respected regional security analyst, so the information here is built on a solid foundation of expert analysis.
So, let's set the scene. Just look at this. The date is January 17th, 2026. This is Gul Plaza in Karachi, normally a buzzing, vibrant center of commerce. Packed with people. But on this day, it was transformed into a devastating inferno. And this aerial shot, it really just begins to show you the sheer scale of the destruction we're talking about. The human cost was just staggering. 71. That's the number of confirmed deaths. 71 people. Shopkeepers, workers, customers, even a firefighter who was just trying to help, lost their lives.
And in those first few hours of chaos, the situation looked even more terrifying. 77 people were reported missing. Can you just imagine that? The agonizing uncertainty for their families, just waiting for any news.
All right, so let's talk about what Gul Plaza actually was. Because to really understand how this happened, you need to know about the place itself, how a busy commercial hub turned into a literal death trap.
So, picture this. We're not talking about some small corner store. Gul Plaza was massive. It's located right on M.A. Jinnah Road, one of Karachi's busiest streets. We're talking over 1,200 shops inside, selling everything you can think of. Textiles, electronics, cosmetics, you name it. It was a cornerstone of the local economy. And yeah, it was built back in '79 and its plans were regularized in 2003. But what no one really saw, or maybe what people chose to ignore, was that this place was a ticking time bomb.
Okay, now let's reconstruct what actually happened that night. We're going to walk through the anatomy of this disaster pretty much minute by minute.
So how does something like this even begin? Well, it started small. Around 9:50 p.m., a fire ignites on the ground floor. The story is that it was kids playing with a lighter near flammable goods, a small, containable spark. But here's the thing. There were no alarms to warn anyone, no sprinklers to slow it down. So that small spark grew, and it grew explosively. It took almost half an hour for the first emergency call to even be placed, and by the time help could navigate the traffic to get there, it was already a raging inferno, engulfing multiple floors and trapping hundreds of people inside. Firefighters battled that blaze for more than 24 hours straight. Just think about that, an entire day.
But you see, the fire itself isn't the whole story. Not even close. What we really need to uncover is why a containable fire became such a massive catastrophe. And the answer lies in a complete cascade of failures.
This right here, this is the most direct and horrifying reason so many people died. People couldn't get out. It's that simple and that terrible. On paper, the building had 16 emergency exits. In reality, at least 14 of them were useless, locked or completely blocked by shop goods and stalls. It was apparently routine for management to just lock the doors after business hours. Escape was physically impossible for so many. They were trapped.
And on top of that, there was absolutely nothing in place to stop the fire from spreading. Just try to wrap your head around this. A building with over 1,000 shops had no functioning fire alarms, no automatic sprinklers to douse the flames, no smoke detectors to give an early warning, not even accessible fire hoses. There was no first line of defense. The building was completely helpless.
And you have to ask, where were the authorities in all of this? Well, this disaster didn't come out of nowhere. Turns out, fire safety warnings and audits had been issued for years. But the enforcement of building codes, it was basically non-existent. No penalties, no closures for not complying. It was a pattern of neglect from the top down that created the perfect conditions for a tragedy like this.
But the blame doesn't just stop with the government. There was a deep-seated negligence inside the plaza itself. Shopkeepers reported exposed wiring and constantly overloaded electrical circuits. You had highly flammable stock just piled up in the hallways, the exact places people needed to run. There was just no culture of safety, none. It seems maintenance fees were collected, but they sure weren't being spent on keeping people safe. So when you lay it all out like this, you can see it's not one single mistake. It's a total system failure. The blocked exits, that's on building management and the shopkeepers. The complete lack of safety equipment, that falls to the Plaza Association and management. The ignored audits and poor design, that points right back to government and regulatory bodies.
Everybody had a piece of the responsibility, and pretty much everyone failed. Let's take a moment now to talk about the human cost, because behind all these failures and numbers are real people. I want you to just look at this number, 30. Rescue teams found the bodies of 30 people in a single location, a single shop. They were trapped together with absolutely nowhere to go. This is the direct, brutal result of those locked and blocked exits.
And this is what the first responders faced. For days on end, they had to go into this hellscape, navigating through smoke and rubble with the constant threat of the building collapsing on top of them. They were desperately searching for survivors, but all too often, that search turned into a grim recovery mission.
And this is maybe the most important takeaway from the entire tragedy. Most people didn't die from the fire itself. They died from smoke inhalation and suffocation. Why? Because they couldn't escape. Their deaths weren't caused by flames. They were caused by being trapped. This was so preventable.
So, after a disaster that was this preventable, you can bet that the city's grief quickly turned into outrage. People started demanding answers, and they wanted accountability.
Yeah, as the full picture of the negligence started coming out, the city erupted. Families of the victims were out on the streets protesting. They were furious, demanding that someone, both the government and the business owners, be held accountable for what happened.
And slowly, some official action started to happen. A first information report, an FIR, was registered, and it specifically cited negligence. It called out the locked gates and the lack of emergency exits. Authorities also made plans to demolish the whole unsafe structure. The incident basically forced a city-wide conversation about these urban safety failures that had been ignored for far too long.
Which really brings us to the final, incredibly difficult question. We've seen this whole chain of failures, from the government to the building management to the people working inside. So when a tragedy is this preventable, where does the buck stop? Who is ultimately responsible?
It's a question that doesn't have an easy answer, but one that absolutely has to be asked, long after the embers have cooled. If you want to dive deeper, the full list of sources used in engineer Abdurrahman Mahmoud's comprehensive research is right here on your screen. Thank you for joining us for this explainer.